we go.
This meeting is being recorded.
It definitely warns you now. All right, perfect. I will hand it off to Kaylee to get us started.
Hi everyone, welcome. Tonight, our guest speaker Joy, she found my blog a few months ago and we spoke about things concerning navigating life after high school and other programs. At this time, I would like Joy to begin.
So thank you so much for that warm welcome. And I do have to say your blog is very inspirational. And I have to say that I frequent it often. And I recommend everybody who's here, if you haven't already seen her beautiful blog, to visit the topics because they're really great and very heartfelt. So tonight's topic is near and dear to my heart. And I know that, navigating anything post-COVID is definitely a challenge. So some of the things that I definitely want to give you a chance to do is kind of think about not just where you are, but where you want to go. So for me, it's constantly setting and then resetting my goals and dreams and kind of revisiting that passion of what I'm doing often enough. Next slide, please. So this is me. And I just wanted you guys to know like where my foundation is. So my background is in school counseling and working specifically with students from middle school straight through to high school. Right now I'm working in a high school. So as I said, I never really stopped learning and I'm in school again now. So I'm in my late 40s. And one of the things that I know is that I'm never too old or expired to continue my next step. So applying for schools back and last year and resetting some goals. I also am a joiner. So I try to keep joining things and learning and staying fresh. One of the things that I also know is I have a son with some disabilities. He has 2Q23.1, autism, galactosemia, and that makes me a little bit more sensitive to different learning styles. So knowing that he has different obstacles, challenges, limitations, we work around them. And so it's important for you to know that also as a mom, that I'm a fierce advocate. So I hope that we can talk about advocacy as well in this setting. I also am the type of speaker that I don't want to just speak at you. So if you feel comfortable at any point in time, like chiming in or, I'll ask at certain points in time for some participation. It's the teacher in me that kind of comes out when I like to have that kind of interaction. So next slide. One of the things that I try to do is keep a calendar and a routine. And I know that doing those things kind of helps put me on the right track and stay organized. So even for this speaking event tonight, I kind of had an organizational flow to what I wanted to do, and I keep calendars. I know that that sounds interesting that, even in this kind of setting, that those routines, those patterns are things that I repeat. Researchers did find that these routines and rituals and calendars really do help with a lot of other things more than just being successful. It also lessens stress. So I know every day I look on my phone and I see what day it is. And ironically, today is National Jersey Day. And it's also Love is Kind Day. So I just wanted to share that with you as an icebreaker and tell you that it is part of my routine every day to look at the calendar and see, oh my gosh, it's donut day, or, oh, it's, ice cream day. So we can all celebrate. So National Love is Kind Day is also a really great thing because it's a way to know that relationships should always be kind and never mean and nasty and abusive. Next slide, please. Oh, so that last slide, I'm not going to go back to it, but the last slide, that little researchers thing is a link. So I would love to share with you. In fact, I'm going to put it into the chat. Is the actual document. I want to share that with everybody because what I would love to do is have you play around with this when we're not together. I know that in this world of virtual sharing that we're doing tonight and that we've done since COVID, there's so much more interaction with this actual presentation. We can click on these different things together, but knowing that you can also go back to this presentation at any point in time and rewatch some of the things and hit those links and take a look at the research or the things behind it. So one of the things that I want you to know about me is that I really couldn't read a clock until I was in ninth grade and until I was in high school. And I still really don't have a concept of time. My necklace right here is my husband's like real serious thing because I cannot remember our wedding date. It bothers him terribly. So he put it on a little necklace for me to remember. When I was in college, I was put in the very basic math class that I could be placed in without still being in high school. It was called 050 math, and it gave me a no credit math class that I had to do to prepare myself to get to college level work. And I know that that sounds crazy because of what the expectation of college is, but it's important to realize that there are other ways to get through those challenges. And it taught me that, I can still get a degree. I can still achieve my Master of Science. I have a master's degree plus some. But I did have to go backwards to go forwards, if that makes any sense. So I want to take a moment to just say, whoa, take a moment, take a breath, and realize that it's not so bad. Whatever things are challenges, or are you an optimist? Do you think that you can do it? Because you can. Or how do you deal with challenge? That's why I put that little give up or try again, and the check is on try again, because guess what? You don't have to stop. You don't have to just take no for an answer. And when I hear a lot of times that people have said discouraging things or disparaging things, I always like to reframe those into positives. So if somebody says, you're really terrible at math, you really, you don't belong here. The answer is, I may not belong here yet, okay, but I'm going to get there. So when we hear those different moments where you're facing something that's really challenging, it's important for you to realize that a guidance counselor's responsibility is to be a cheerleader and to be somebody who's encouraging and really your cheerleader. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And it's the same thing for anybody around you. Sometimes you need to be your own internal cheerleader. So, also knowing the difference between smarts and hard work, because there's definitely a lot more to elbow grease and working for something. If you could click on for me that little link, this who do you want to be right there? This is a little TED talk that I just want to show a snippet of, and I'll just show you this little piece from her, because it really shows a beautiful way of believing in yourself. If you could just hit that play button and then the full screen for me.
I may need to just unmute myself. Let's see.
If the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, has ever caused you any anxiety? Any anxiety at all? The notion of the narrowly focused life is highly romanticized in our culture. It's this idea of destiny or the one true calling. The idea that we each have one great thing we are meant to do during our time on this earth, and you need to figure out what that thing is and devote your life to it. But what if you're someone who isn't wired this way? What if there are a lot of different subjects that you're curious about and many different things you want to do? You might feel like you don't have a purpose. You might feel like there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. What you are is a multi-potentialite. A multi-potentialite is someone with many interests and creative pursuits. You can also use one of the other terms that connote the same idea, such as the polymath, the Renaissance person. When multi-potentialites become interested in something, we go hard. We absorb everything we can get our hands on. We're also used to being beginners because we've been beginners so many times in the past. And this means that we're less afraid of trying new things and stepping out of our comfort zones. What's more, many skills are transferable across disciplines, and we bring everything we've learned to every new area we pursue, so we're rarely starting from scratch. As a society, we have a vested interest in encouraging multi-potentialites to be themselves. We have a lot of complex, multidimensional problems in the world right now, and we need creative, out-of-the-box thinkers to tackle them. Embrace your many passions. Follow your curiosity down those rabbit holes. Explore your intersections. Embracing our inner wiring leads to a happier, more authentic life. And perhaps more importantly, multi-potentialites. The world needs us.
Okay, thank you so much for playing that piece for me. And I hope you get the gist that I kind of believe in this, follow your passion. And then if that doesn't work out, it's okay. And it's okay to try something else. And it's okay to restart and hit the reset button. I am a Nurtured Heart trained counselor. And so I really do, one of the foundational pillars of that counseling approach is the reset button. And I really do love the idea of at any point in time in my life, I can hit the reset and start and try something new and unexpected. Um, and believing in myself as a multi-potentialite, I hope we all can feel those moments of, something in us is special, and something in us, is something we can explore. So where do we find inspiration? That is a good question, because a lot of times there's going to be a couple of slides moving forward that I hope don't intimidate you. They stimulate you. So there's one that's next. You can flip to the next slide. Okay, wonderful. So one of the places that I know that this is kind of wild, but one of the places I find inspiration is in other people of greatness. And I find with my son's issues that he has, I follow some of the really inspirational people that have had struggles, challenges, learning issues, differences. Dr. Kerry Magro, each of these are live links. We don't have to visit each of them, but I don't know. Does everybody know who Dr. Kerry Magro is? He's actually from Jersey. Um, he's an, I see a head shake. So Dr. Kerry Magro is an inspirational speaker, and he is fantastic at giving good sound advice on how to really navigate around the people who have different learning styles. Temple Grandin is somebody who has higher level thinking, and is also having some sensory issues and also some difficulties navigating the world. She's so inspirational, and her book is fantastic. I put her TED Talk in here because I found it to be one of the most inspirational things. Nicole Parrish is an artist. She's somebody who has an unexpected career path. She loves bugs and found a way to work this love and passion for bugs into an art career. Timothy Rower is another, he's my former student, and he is from New Jersey, and he's an inspirational speaker. And I am always looking for people who have made it, or who have made it look easier. So all of these TED Talks, the Twitter account, the Instagram, Dr. Kerry Magro's TikTok experience, I tried to put it across all disciplines because I do find all these different social media things do connect us. So I put those together on a slide for you guys to build your army. Because when we think of what it takes to get somewhere, whether that's from point A to point B at a new job, or whether that's from point A to point B and trying something new, it's good to sit down and listen to other people that will say that you can do it. And I think that in those moments when you think, maybe I don't know if I can, or you have some doubts or some negative self-talk, which is another thing that creeps in sometimes. It's good to build that army of positivity. Next slide. Okay, this is the slide that's intimidating. So when people ask me as a career counselor, what can I do? I mean, I really don't even know where to start, or I don't even know what my likes and dislikes are. I know that most community colleges and sometimes some high schools will do something um, that they'll give you a test. It's called a strong test, like strong. And it's really a lot of questions to find out what career area you wanted to go into. And so I figured to myself, I really can't test everybody in this session and go through and find what your interests are and pair that with your abilities. But that's what that strong test will do. Is it's an obnoxious test. It's not actually right or wrong answers. It just narrows down by field like what you'd be not just good at, but also liking. Um, so what I did was I kind of took the 13 areas of careers that exist and I put them together on a slide. So from building trades, arts, business, communications, community and social services, 6, which is education, science and technology, installation and repair and maintenance, farming, fishing and forestry, government, health and medicine, law and public policy, and sales. Now, what I did was I simplified each of these into just a little blurb. And then I also put relatable types of careers that are in that genre. And so even if you think of any of the ones that were like that, Nicole Parrish, who loves the bugs, and she also loves to be an artist. She could either be a 2 or she could be a 9, which is the farming, fishing, and forestry, and the art. And she was able to blend those two together to find her career. What's kind of interesting to think is all the careers out there fit in some way, shape, or form into these different categories. So if there's one that you read and you find yourself torn towards, I can tell you my very first career choice that I chose for myself was working with animals. And before we had this little presentation today, I had to make sure my dogs weren't part of the audience here because they really get excited to be part of this. But I know that my original calling, or I thought my first thing was going to be, I was going to be a bio major and I was going to work with animals. The same heart and desire that I put into that major, when I switched it to working in a school, I still had that passion for animals, and I still keep that near and dear to my heart. If you look back at my original slide, I pair my love of therapy and therapeutic intervention with volunteering, and I do have a therapy dog in my life. So we find ways to make these connections with these different things that we love. And it's okay if you look at this big slide with all these words on it and you like 2 or 3 of the different categories. That's okay too. It's okay to blend them together. It's okay to pull them apart. Um, there are no right answers. But hopefully, when you start looking at something like this slide, it gets you excited for some area of learning. And that's why I put it here. Next slide, please. So when we think of training, everybody always says college, college. Well, it's not just college, but it's important to know that I'm talking about training, learning, and it doesn't have to be college attendance. Everybody's so pushing people towards college. It doesn't have to be college, but it is some sort of training, because almost everything out there that's worth getting into takes some kind of skill. And some people, believe it or not, have that skill inside of them already. Oh, that's so beautiful when you have that kind of talent. But for me, it took a whole lot more than just having any kind of talent. And if you ever saw anything I drew, you'd know that I have zip for talent in that regard. But in a lot of ways, I included this chart just to let you know what types of different learning there is. So there is trade schools. Um, Obviously, there are 2-year schools and community colleges, and underneath that are the types of things that you can get from there. So from a community college, you could get an associate's degree, which is a 2-year degree. You could get a certificate where it's just a specific couple of training things for one specific cert. Um, and then usually community colleges or trade schools are usually in 2-year bundles, but not necessarily certificates. Certificates could just be a couple of courses. The next is a 4-year university. Some people do 2 years at the community college and get their associates, and then they pair that with 2 more years at a community, which is at the community college or a university. When you finish your college experience, it'll be a Bachelor of Arts, a BA, or a BS. And typically that's a 4-year program. Sometimes some colleges will roll in an extra year and give you a master's degree for some programs. That's usually to save money and time. And some careers, we know going in that we're going to have to do a master's degree. So sometimes they have those programs already in like a little present, in a little parcel, where you can get that extra year and get that master's degree. Sometimes nursing is like that. Graduate school is after you graduate from college. Usually it's done in 2 years, although my first master's degree took me 2 years, and my current master's degree is going to take me 5 years. It's going to take me a really long time because I'm taking it slow. And believe it or not, sometimes graduate schools, when you do the 2 years of a master's degree, you can add 2 more years and get a doctorate. That won't be me. It will be taking me forever. And then there are doctoral programs. That's where you get your PhD, your MD, or your JD, which is a JD is somebody who's a lawyer. So it says terminal degree. I know that sounds terrible. Terminal. It means terminal because it takes forever. For doctors, typically it takes an additional 7 years of residency. For lawyers, it's typically 5 to 7 years additionally. So that's a whole lot of school to get whatever that terminal degree is. Anybody have any questions about this specific slide? I know that's kind of like a wild slide. It doesn't seem like I've been in school for a million years, but I've been in school for a million years. And I still keep going back for more. All right, this slide is a lot of fun. When you're able to play with this slide, I want you to know that, do you ever see the Millionaire Matchmaker, where the woman matches you with your perfect relationship, and she's able to find really 2 successful people, beautiful people, and put them together? There is a college matchmaker. It is so cool. It's done by this website called collegeboard.org. And what it basically is a computer program that will help match you with your perfect school by location, by size of school, by cost of school. Sometimes if you want a religiously affiliated school, do you want a co-ed school, or do you want a single sex school? It goes through and by all the different categories, and you can click on that college matchmaker just for an example, because all of these are live links for you to play with. It's called Big Future. What I love about this is, there it is. Find the right college for you. It's free. I love that you can play with this and try to find your perfect school. I wish more people shared this with me when I was going through the searching process. I also get pretty persnickety when people pay to have people advise them about college, when this is free, and there's so many free websites, and your guidance counselor is free too. you can go back to our presentation. Thank you so much for that. That colleges in New Jersey, that lists every single school, that top link on the left-hand side. There's even a school for rabbis. There's a school for nurses. There's a school for one of everything, and trade schools. There are colleges, trade schools are in the middle. If you look in the center, I also included all the trade and technical schools in New Jersey. I did this because I feel like there is a bit of discovery that can go into finding the right place to go. And sometimes I know that for me, I didn't want to go too far from home when I originally went to school. So going to college in New Jersey was a great start for me to look. The trade schools and technical schools, if you're looking for any kind of hands-on kind of learning experience, that's a great place to look. The trade schools and technical schools are all listed there. Some colleges, for their admission, if it's a 4-year college, and usually only if it's a 4-year college, they require an entrance exam. If you had an IEP when you were in high school, most likely there would be a application that you could have to apply for extended time for that. That is the SAT and the ACT. Some people tell me that the ACT is easier. I don't know if it's easier. I do know that it's different. It's more like my brain doesn't work just in math and reading. The ACT gives you science, social studies. It gives you other topics other than just math and English. So I feel like it may be for some people that love science and love social studies and love some practical learning, it might be a more realistic test rather than easier. The AccuPlacer is a test that the colleges use. It is not an entrance test. Community colleges accept 100% of the people that apply. So if you apply there, you will get in. The AccuPlacer is just used to place you into the correct math and English class. For me, as I told you, I had to go backwards to go forwards. And if I were going to community college, I would have taken that same course that I took at Monmouth, which is the 050 math for no credit. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I did not have the skills to go right into. Now, I could have gotten terribly upset and insulted, and I could have given up, but I didn't. I dug in and realized I had a couple of things I had to get under my belt before I went on to the next step. There are also some schools, and I included them here, that are test optional. Test optional means we're not going to test you. We're just going to look at you as an entire person. Our application is going to be much more inclusive and not just looking at a number. So there are a number of schools that are now being a lot more practical and realizing that not everybody can score X on a test. And I kind of like that. So I included that in there too for people that are not in love with being judged by a test. And again, I wanted to include everything for you. So I also put underneath there the Military Futures magazine, because I know some people are not really sure that they want to go into a college or a trade school. And military service does give you a GI Bill, which helps you pay for training. They even give you training right on the site there. And the Military Futures magazine gives you every single branch of the military and what is available in each one. So it's kind of like another interesting avenue or path. And I know that some of my students have used that magazine to guide their decision making. Can you click on the Joy's College Corner? Who doesn't love a Padlet? Has anybody played with the Padlet programming before? Okay, so you can make these for yourself too, by the way. It's completely free. A Padlet is just like a pin board that you can place all kinds of different websites. So my college corner is actually a really great pin board of all the different things that can help you get ready for college. And I shared with you my Padlet that I use when I work with all my students. So whether it's registering for the SAT or test prep or college fairs where you can go visit the schools, representatives, or whether it's visiting colleges and what to ask, or rating places you can even pull down. There's so much on my Padlet that you can play around with and take a look at. The matchmaker is on there too. So this is just a really great fun place for you guys to play with and look. And on a rainy day, it's a great idea for you to explore. You
This
can
is
go back.
awesome, Joy. Thank you.
Oh, and make Padlets for yourself. I have Padlets for all kinds of funny stuff. And if you, I know that I had shared with Kaylee my newsletter. I have Padlets all over the newsletter. So I really am a little bit of a computer nerd. So I try to infuse all of my things that I do with technology. And so much of what's helped me get through my challenges has been technology. So if we could go to the next step, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. All right. The one thing that I can tell people is whenever you sit down to do an application, whether that is, and I put this at the bottom, job applications too, whenever you do a application, they're all very similar. What are, I just want to throw this out there. Can somebody mention to me one, without getting too personal, a challenge that you've overcome? Is there anybody here that has had a challenge that they've been able to overcome and get through? Kaylee?
Yes, one of my recent challenges that I've been able to overcome, I know this might not really like go with about your topic, but one of my challenges is getting better socially with people.
And I think you really have. We've spoken a number of times, and it's been always a pleasure. So I would say that that's a really great thing. When I think of the intimidation of certain conversations, I can tell you that that's great that you've overcome that and are working at overcoming that. It's always to me that moment that you realize that you've really come full circle and you really are willing to put yourself out there. That's what applying for college is like. It's really like just giving it a try and doing your very best to overcome the intimidation level of it. But realizing once you're in it, once you're doing it, you realize I can do this. And Kaylee, you do a beautiful job of that. And I'm kind of glad that I called on you because I did get to have that personal connection with you. And I can say with confidence that you have that. I also know that the admission process can seem very overwhelming. So can applying for a job. And sometimes when you apply for a job, the people that you're applying for might not answer you back, like ever. So there are some etiquette things that I always say, like don't be afraid to call and say, did I not get this job or did I get this job or how did I interview? Um, those moments that I think of is that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that's on this slide here. Because you have to still risk it. The worst that they can say is no, or the worst that they can say is we're looking for a different student. Now, this past year after COVID, I have to let you know most of my students did receive a lot of rejection letters. And the reason why that happened is they had deferred twice 2 years in COVID in admission candidates. So they had filled their class and then they had postponed it. And then they filled their class and postponed it. So this year, those students that postponed it are going. And so that left little room for students that really wanted to go. and the opportunities were slimmer. So even students that were shoo-ins in the past got waitlisted or rejected. And to me, it's not that you're not a quality person. It's sometimes just that there's different opportunities that aren't there. And when I think of the heartbreak that that can bring, I always think of what does it take then to have that next step to say, okay, I didn't get into this or I didn't get into that. So now what am I going to do? There is a great article on grit. And I believe in that because we all have doors closed in our faces. I've had bosses that I haven't been able to please. And I've had situations where I haven't been uh, achieving where I wanted to achieve or in an environment that I felt was supportive. So sometimes it takes that grit to say, okay, I didn't get in here, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lick my wounds and I'm going to move into a better situation. So the secret to getting ahead is getting started. And I put that on here. And fear is the biggest thing, and rejection is the biggest thing that prevents us from taking that next step. But the good news is that if you take the next step, there's a big payoff. Kaylee, in your decision to make communication a priority, you already are having that grit and you're taking that next step. And I think that we all have to take that next step and be brave and do that next thing, whatever that means. I included applications. And if you click on any of these, if you click on Kane University, I just wanted to take that as an example. If you just click on that, and Amanda, I'll get right to your question. I just wanted to click on this because it gives you a form that you request information and then they give you an application in your email. Go back to the presentation. I just wanted to give you, Kane is one of the more affordable ones. Let's take Ocean County College. Take a look in there. That takes you to their admission page, and you can do right from here. It'll give you an application right on their admission page. I just wanted to show you what examples of admission pages look like and where to find the applications. Amanda, what was your question?
I don't really have a question, just a statement. One of the biggest fears that I overcame actually during the pandemic is trying something new, which led me to my job that I'm currently in now. So like, I totally agree with what you're saying, Joy, is overcoming that fear of just wanting to try something different, and you never know where it's going to lead you. I took an advocacy class through Rutgers. That was I want to say it was from September till April, and that led me to my job at Motions that I'm working as an outreach coordinator now for about over a year. So I just wanted to share that story, that taking that that chance and that leap of faith could lead you to many different things. So
I'll tell you, Amanda, I'm going to get back to you on your advocacy, because if you have that background in advocacy, I have a slide that I could definitely use that advocacy background. And I think that that's fabulous that you've worked through Rutgers and taken that course in advocacy, and knowing that you're out there advocating for people. That's just such an amazing thing. And yes, trying new things, not easy. It is not easy.
And I also want to thank Kaylee for connecting you to us and setting up this presentation. So, thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you so much too. So let's next slide. Oh, before we go on really quick, I wanted to go last slide really quick. There are scholarships and financial aid, and I put them on here so that you could link to them, but I didn't want to take my whole presentation on money, but I did want to at least let you know that I put them on here, because we don't just have to worry about attending, which is big enough, scary enough as it is, but then there's that other half of, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this? So I did put some scholarship searching things on there, and also the free application for federal aid. It's just another application. And we talk about, they all look the same applications. They ask your name, your date of birth. Sometimes they'll ask for your interests or what you like, but for the most part, they're fairly simple and straightforward. And it's like any kind of application, it's worth putting it out there, because the worst that they can say is, no, we're not going to give you money. But most times they will at least offer you some loans. So it's kind of good to at least know that exists there too, because there isn't just we have to attend, it's we have to attend and we have to pay for it. So next slide now. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I put that on there. Yes, the purpose of life is to be happy. And I know that sometimes we lose touch with that. And I included the characters from In and Out. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie. If you haven't seen that movie, please see that movie. Hulu it, or I don't know, Netflix it. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it's one of my favorites. And it's no wonder the lead character's name is Joy, which is me. And one of the things that I always like to think about is the purpose of our life is to be happy. And our emotions that we have a ton of them, and they're running rampant when we have all these different things that we are up against, whether that's jobs or new things like Amanda said, or challenging some of our own thoughts that we have with communication, or any of the things that we have going on. It's very easy to lose track of that joy and happiness. And I always like to kind of come back to the point of everything is, if I'm not enjoying this and I'm miserable in this, it is time to reevaluate why fear is running rampant, or why anger is getting the best of me, or why loneliness is getting in the way, or why I feel disgusted all the time. And I really do like that movie because it really goes through all of the emotions, and it helps me to get in touch with how I'm feeling. Sometimes I don't even know how I'm feeling. So I think it's important to take a step back sometimes and look through the lens and really identify how you're feeling. And that cartoon, and I know it's meant for kids, but it's really, I'm the biggest kid of all. It's important for me to get through that and remember that the purpose of life is really to be happy, and to have less of these negative emotions and more of the positive emotions. Next slide. Okay. When we do get into our jobs or into our dream schools or anywhere that we have been, there are a lot of protections for people with disabilities. And it starts really with IDEA, which was set up for public education. And if you were lucky to have either a 504 plan or an IEP, which is an individual education plan, it gives you a chance to have those educational accommodations and modifications to help you get to the learning. And I included the parental right catalog in there. And I also know that free and public education is not just what you get. You do need whatever it is that you need to get that learning. And IDEA provides that. Whether that's Title 16 or Title 18A, it's important to realize that those accommodations and modifications are your right, and they help you get to where you need to go while you're in school. When you graduate school, I always say, save your IEP. Don't just discard it, save it, because it can be reworked into something else when you graduate. When you graduate from high school, that IDEA or IEP expires, but it can be used to make something for college. Once you graduate from high school, the ADA picks up, and that's the American with Disabilities Act. By the way, yesterday was like the birthday for the American with Disabilities Act. It is the anniversary, July 26th, of the American with Disabilities Act. So happy birthday, the ADA. And when and I did include links in this too, to tell you that the purpose of the American with Disabilities Act is to make sure everybody has the same opportunities as everybody else. And when we think about how important that is to really get everything to be a level playing ground. We really need that. We have to watch out though, because sometimes people don't like to provide those accommodations for disabled persons. And those are where advocacy comes in. Amanda, I know you know this. We sometimes have to fight against people that will not give accommodations. And there are things like individual health plans, or in the case of colleges, they make your own college support plan. Schools have offices of disability services. And in that Office of Disability Services, they are charged with following the ADA's laws. And so what I also did was I gave you Rutgers Common Accommodations. If you click on that for me, I wanted you to know what some of the common accommodations could be. Pull down, please. You'll notice that these are very different than an IEP, because IEP will modify the curriculum. Colleges will leave the curriculum alone and expect everybody to get to that point. However, they don't care how you get to that point. So they will give you enlarged print. They will give you exams at a different time. I always want to say be very careful with extended time. If they give you extended time and you are a procrastinator, that can really hurt you. So watch out when you get that. Maybe negotiating that and setting yourself up with clear deadlines are really helpful. But these are some common ones that Rutgers uses. If we can go back to the other motions. I have another slide. If you could go to the next one. These are some common ones that I really have seen students use and really get a lot out of. The note taking. I know that I was a note taker because I'm very good at note taking and organizing notes. I was paid for my notes, and I never knew which students got my notes in my classes, but they were able to use my notes. And so they had their notes that they took and then mine, and they could compare them and learn double in that way. I know students that have gotten single dorm rooms because it's very hard for their concentration levels to have roommates. I know that separate setting for doing work or separate setting for having testing, extension for times. I know some people who really also have single participant. They don't do group projects because they are uncomfortable in groups. So they'll have single tasked items. Access to teachers' notes. Sometimes classes are moved from inconvenient places. Sometimes you can get your textbooks on audio. I love that. I love to listen while I'm reading. There's no better way to get that information into my brain than through my eyes and ears. And sometimes even writing it out too. The more senses you engage, the more it might marinate. And especially for me, because sometimes I think I'm a visual learner. Sometimes I'm pretty sure that I'm not. But either way, the more ways I try to get it in, the better. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So this has been a sore slide for a lot of folks, especially my students that feel very independent. They feel like when I talk about executive functioning skills that I'm insulting. And I just really want to say that it's not to say that everybody has their own style of learning, but it's always good to take a look at your practices of organization. And as much as people consider that a remedial task, it is not remedial. It is very, very serious in the difference between success and not. And so those list making or getting your time management together or the way that you are able to do your actual work, it's the difference between being dependent and independent. And I think a lot of times these organizational things can really trip us up. It is not pedestrian. It is not basic skills. It literally is part of getting those. And I mentioned at the beginning how important it is to me to do those rituals and those calendars, and how important it is for me to do that every day as part of my organization. I really lean on this. And whenever I talk about this, I never do it in a demeaning way. I always want people to identify and look at their way of their organization. So I always want to suggest to you to take a look at how you're organizing yourself, because it can make the difference. When you're in middle school, you don't get to do anything on your own. When you're in high school, you're expected to do it a little bit more on your own, and then your parents are still there. And then when you're in college, all of a sudden you have to fly on your own. Fly on your own does not mean without help, but it does necessitate more independence. Next slide. Okay, so how many people have struggles asking for help? How many people? Okay, yeah. I can tell you that it is very hard to ask for help. It's humbling to ask for help. No man is an island. Did you guys ever see that Tom Hanks movie where he actually literally had to create a ball to talk to because he was alone? You do not need to do anything alone. It's important to know that the disability service folks are not your enemy, and that if you had a negative experience in high school with learning, it doesn't have to be history repeating itself. Really, your emotional intelligence, your EQ, and your emotional strength can determine your outcome. And so knowing that you can ask for help and that you will not be judged based on that is liberating. You're all of a sudden, when you're in college, going to look around and there will be people that will be asking for help and visiting the college professors during their office hours. And they very well may ask each other for help. And it's collegial. That's actually a term when you ask for help. It's collegial. It's okay. And as I said, the disability services people are not your enemy. So being self-aware, knowing when you have an issue, and knowing that it's okay to ask for help is really important. Next slide.
Joy, I do want to say too, I think I mentioned this in one of our conversations, but I went to a smaller high school and I had that opportunity to talk with my teachers or my counselors or advisors. And I knew going into college that that's the exact setting I wanted to continue on with. And I ended up in Monmouth, where again, my class sizes were just the same as high school, if not smaller. And I had that one-to-one time with people. So I don't know if the college, finder has that option of like school size. I'm sure it has some feature
Oh, it
like that.
absolutely does. Oh, yeah.
But for any of you who maybe are thinking that same way, maybe filtering it down by class sizes or total population. That way you get that one-to-one time with a professor or an advisor.
I love that's a really important thing. Also in Rutgers, where you have a class of maybe 600 students, they have teacher assistants, which are people that break it into smaller groups. So I know even in those larger settings where you could get lost, you have opportunity for reaching out to connectors. So it's not the exact same, but there are still, I want you to know that even if there's not a small school, there are still disability services and there are still helping things that can also still make that small connection for you. So even in those moments where you think, I wonder if I could get help with this. Sometimes, and I know some of you aren't even looking at college, you might be out of college and you might be in your job. Human resources is not always a place that would give you no help. So sometimes even at a job, you'll find that coworker that can be a helper or a supervisor that can be a helper. Okay, next slide. All right, advocacy. Amanda, this is where I know that self-advocacy is so important, and being your own advocate. So it refers to your way to communicate and negotiate and assert what you need, and to say, speaking up for yourself and saying, I need something. So it's really what we need. I know that we can't see that little guy and the other thing, but it's a guy and it says, I need, and it's I need dot, dot, dot. So it basically advocating for yourself is saying, I need something, whether I need, extra help or extra note or extra time. It's all speaking up for yourself. Hold on one second.
Amanda, I think this is the part where education and advocacy is really going to tune in, right?
Okay,
Yes.
do not be upset. I'm sorry. I was some sort of a delivery person and it was not for me. I'm sorry. They kept ringing my
Please.
doorbell. I never ordered.
Do
All
not
right.
worry.
Okay. So I just didn't want to stop my presentation. I'm so sorry. So anyway, advocating for yourself. I just appreciate you guys taking the time to stop that for one moment. But advocating for yourself is so important and it makes it real for you. I wanted to see if anybody has advocated for themselves. I know Amanda said she's an advocate. This is where I'm going to get back to her and say, is there a time where you've advocated for yourself?
I would say pretty much my whole life has been advocating I remember being a young girl and advocating for things that I needed. And I want to say the main thing about advocacy that I've learned through this job and learned through my career, it's not one of the main points is advocacy is not only about you, it's about everybody else that you're helping. So whether you're helping with a bill that's going to be passed or putting your voice out for something that needs to be done, it's advocacy is not only about you, it's about helping other people. So
Systems advocacy is actually huge. And, there are several different types of advocacy, and that's systems advocacy. When you can link up with other people, your voice becomes double, triple, quadruple what you originally have it as. So I know that can make such a big difference, Amanda. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. So it's knowing yourself, it's knowing what you need, and then saying it and going after it. So I think that that's really something that I think Kaylee is with your communication. That's definitely bit by bit, step by step. We all crawl towards that. How am I going to get that? And whether that's uh, choosing a goal that's small, or whether that's choosing a life path and it's a big thing. I think it's all just one step in front of the other, and creating those plans for yourself. Here's what I want, and here's how I'm going to get it. All right, next slide.
and I want to say, like, in my 38 years of almost life, I haven't always been the greatest advocate for myself. There was a lot of times that I was fearful of asking for things, and you learn that it doesn't lead you anywhere, that you have to be the one that speaks up and says that I do need this. I personally never went to college. I felt that I don't want to downplay my school system, but I felt that my school system didn't prepare me very well. I felt that the guidance counselor didn't really know how to work with somebody with a disability. So, that was just my view of my school career.
I hear that often. I really do. I hear that often, that I have. In fact, if you look at the media does not portray guidance counselors all that awesome. If you look at historical movies, whether it's that they're just portrayed as not being that person to take a listen, and then also believing in everybody's potential. And I have to say that there are counselors and trusted adults that do believe. And it's not just like believing in Santa. It's like believing that you can achieve. And I believe in the human potential. So little by little, I tell people not to compare themselves. Don't sit there and say, I can't. because there are so many different types of intelligences. And I know you just said I didn't go to college, and that's okay too. That's not the only path. And to me, book smarts, it's only one way. There's street smarts, and there's special interests, and there's self-taught, and there's people that have gifts and talents that are off the map. Go off the map. It's okay to go off script. It's okay to go whichever direction is your direction. I also believe in the ability model, which is that everybody can. And that's not to accept limitations, and it's not to play fairy tales either, but it's to have confidence and positive thinking and that can do attitude. I just wanted to take one of the more extreme cases of somebody who has achieved greatness where there was doubt. And if you hit that Nick inspirational story, I don't know if anybody of you has ever seen this, but this is exceptional.
I have heard of Nick Voyage. I actually also
Yeah.
have his book as well.
Oh, awesome. If you could just turn this up.
But if you worked hard, you could do better than your parents. That's the American dream. Now
This is an ad.
out of reach for too many. That's why
Oh, sorry about the ad.
we're making New Jersey more affordable. Join us.
It's YouTube now.
One simple but brilliant trick to cool your home in 90 seconds.
Oh.
Tired of hot and stuffy room?
Thank you for
It's
skipping
an
the ad.
overworked word, but there's no other way to describe Nick Vujicic. He really is inspiring. Nick was born without arms or legs. And when he tells the story of his birth, the shock, the confusion suffered by his parents, he'll have you in tears. Growing up wasn't all that much fun either. So how did this poor little Aussie kid do so well? Become school captain, go to uni, get a double degree, and set himself up in a really great job. That's the story we're about to tell. A message of hope that's helped teenagers all over the world cope with their problems. A message you'll never forget.
Should jump in, mate.
Nick Vujicic was born with no legs and no arms,
I'm going out on a limb. What do you want?
but he's sure got plenty of guts.
This is scary right here, mate. This is where you gotta have guts. Or you're a bit crazy. 10. Nice, mate. Thank you very much. You're a generous judge.
This 25-year-old Australian is climbing over every obstacle life puts in front of him, and he's doing it with style.
You really can do anything, can't you?
There's no harm in believing so.
Everybody's going through something. You know, we're all going through something, just my pain is a bit more visible than yours or somebody else. When that clicked, it was like a light bulb when, you know, just flashed in my brain. I'm like, hey, now life I see as an opportunity. This circumstance, there's got to be something good.
No arms, no legs.
No worries, mate.
Okay, we can stop his speech, but as long as you kind of know that when I think of his inspirational story, I think that we all have within the box thinking and then out of the box thinking. And if anybody's ever put you in the box, you don't have to stay in the box. You can choose which direction you want to go, and then you go in that. And if you don't want to go to college, that's okay. If you don't want to go to the military, that's okay. If you want to find a passion that you have an interest in, then go for that. There is a statistic out there about creative thinking and success. And the highest achieving monetary billionaires are not all from universities. So I often wonder, then where does it come from? And I do believe it comes from multiple intelligences. And I also believe that it's about the ability model. I believe that it's believing in success and believing in what you can do, and then breaking through the human potential and just achieving beyond whatever anybody's expectation or box that you've been put in. So next slide. So I just wanted to recap for a minute that it's all about choices, what you choose, choosing your direction, those different field domains, those different types of careers, having inspiration and confidence, taking a look at what kind of training it needs. Amanda, it might just need that course at Rutgers. It might need a trade school or graduate school, or even, a million years of school like I've done and continue to do and probably will never stop doing. But there's no right answer. There's no one path to that end result. It's important that we remember that it's okay to try new things, and having the thought that you can, and that all applications, whether it's a job application or financial aid or even college, it's all very similar and you can do it. How much organization does play in what you can do, and doing a good job and asking for help when needed is always part of the equation. And I'm always going to ask the questions. Resetting goals, never stopping learning, and always resetting and hitting that reset button. How important that is in Nurtured Heart as well as in life. Just hitting that reset button and resetting whenever you need to do that. Next slide. Okay, I always put this out there because whenever I do speaking, I can sometimes churn up emotion, and I don't ever want to leave anybody hanging. Whenever we're talking about success, or we're talking about, having the courage to do things, there's always that other side of the times where it brings up for me the times where I have had loss, or sometimes where I have failed. So I always put resources out there so that everybody can get in touch with if they need any additional resources. There is no stigma to getting help. And sometimes it is really hard navigating things. So I put Second Floor on here because they're a great counseling resource. In New Jersey and all around the country, there's a new suicide crisis lifeline now, which is no longer 911, it's 988. I'm happy to hear that they're manning that with clinicians. I also wanted to put Monmouth Cares on there because Monmouth Cares has a lot more than just behavioral health. They also have a whole ton of resources for individuals, families, finances. I know that COVID's in there, but there's a whole lot of resources for people that may need housing, electricity, all kinds of financial assistance is there as well. So I always like to put this slide on there for anybody who needs extra added supports. And I just wanted to say, next slide, a huge thank you to Kaylee and to Motions in general and to everybody for sitting through this. And I wanted to let you know that success isn't final, failure is not fatal, and the courage to continue is what counts. And that was Winston Churchill. So I just wanted to put my contact information in case you do navigate through this and you want assistance or help, or you want just an extra set of ears on something. I'm available either by email or by phone. I also included my website because there's a lot of fun things to play with on there. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody for having me tonight.
Thank you
Does
so much,
anybody have any
Joy.
questions or answers? Questions? I tried to stop along the way to have you.
Joy, I actually have a question for you, and I want to thank you for that beautiful presentation. I actually wish when I was in high school